same effects that we have. Let's take a look at that opening shot. It is so important to the story, and this is why I chose this particular film to go with the opening shot lesson in the short videos, because it tells us so much. Really, all of the opening shots of the films do, but there's a lot going on here. Yes, exactly, Gabe. The flashbang. Yeah, for photography before they had flashes the way we have, and now half the time we don't even need a flash, right? But they used to have, yeah, it was an actual kind of mini explosion on the top of the camera that provided the light for them. So, yeah, so it was definitely fitting for the film. Good observation. All right, so talk to me about this opening shot. What's happening and why is it significant? Anybody that wants to talk, come on and talk. And otherwise, I'll be reading from the chat box here.
I um I really thought it was interesting that the entire opening scene was a point of view from his window. And
Mhm.
then when they turned around and got to him, they showed the sweat on his forehead, which was important because that was why all the windows were open.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And the sweat on his forehead. And what was the other thing that they showed us that told us why the windows were open, or how do we know it was
The
hot besides
thermometer.
this? Yeah, right. Did everybody see the thermometer? Good, good. Yes, I mean, it shows us the normal before the event. True. Good. Um, Rillian says it tells us who Jeff is, what he's doing, and why, introduces us to the neighbors. Yeah, isn't that interesting? We meet each neighbor just by a glimpse of them through the window. We'll talk about why that's important. Eva says you can see everyone's lives through all the windows, giving us info about what might happen. Yeah, excellent. So we see into those windows, and what did you notice about the score in the opening sequence? Anything? Was anyone paying attention to that?
If I remember correctly, it was kind of upbeat.
It is. Yeah, it's really fun, upbeat, fast. It changes a little bit for each window as he's as Hitchcock is introducing each separate character or couple in a different window. He changes it up a little bit, and that's supposed to tell us something about the characters. So we get a quick glimpse of them, but we get a feel for what they're like based on that music as well, which I think is kind of cool. Also, you mentioned the Matthew, the when we get to look at Jeff and in his apartment, because before that we're kind of seeing everything from his point of view, but then we look at him when he's not looking out the window, we can look at him and we look around his apartment. And what all do we see in there that's really important to the story?
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, specifically the stuff is, yeah, Rillian says camera equipment, right? There's a lot of camera equipment in there. Why is it important that he's a photographer? We get that, right? Right off the bat. We see, well, what are the hints? What tells us that he's a photographer? Different
All the
photos.
pictures on the wall.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're not just, pictures like selfies and, well, obviously back then it wouldn't be selfies, but it's not just pictures of people hanging out. What kinds of pictures are hanging on his wall? What kinds of pictures has he taken, Henry? You're absolutely right. Pictures that, yeah, exactly. Lots of action, right? They're all of really exciting events. And where was he in all these exciting events? Where was Jeff behind the camera? You're right, Caroline. Why does that matter? Why is that
Because that's how he
important?
broke his leg.
Well, yes, that is true. That is true. It means he's observant and he likes the danger and adventure. Yes. And it is the same when he looks out the windows. You're right, Caroline. Does he actually get involved in the adventure, though? He does have the eyes of a hawk. So he's trained to notice things, right? That's his job. He notices things through the camera. He's always watching people, isn't he? That's his job. So it's not surprising that he, as he's stuck there in his apartment, is watching his neighbors, right? So we get that. But he's really not involved. He's always outside of the action, right? Just looking into the action, except when he got his leg broken, but that's just he just got in the way, right? Got kind of run over. But he's not the one that's out there driving the car or jumping out of the plane or, chasing the bulls or whatever it happens to be, right? He's just watching. And the same thing's happening throughout this film, right? And he's actually trapped here in his apartment, kind of like he's trapped behind that camera all the time. But let's think about these little windows that we get of all the characters. A couple of you noticed in your notes, and some of you talked about on the discussion board, what those little windows are supposed to represent. What do those represent?
View into somebody else's world.
Yes, but specifically, right, like little televisions, right? They're just little TV screens, aren't they? If you think about it. And at the beginning, the very beginning, when we see the credits, at the very beginning, a couple of you mentioned you can see the blinds going up. Do you remember that from the opening shot? His blinds are going up. And why do you think that's important in the opening shot in response to or in consideration of what's going on in that opening shot? Gabe says he's scrolling through the channels when he spies on different people. It does kind of feel like that, doesn't it? And for these people, that would have been a lot of channels to see at one time, right? Because back then you got one or two channels, and even that was only if you did the antennas just right, maybe wrapped aluminum foil around them. So I wasn't around yet, but I've heard the stories. Yeah, right. Was the show is beginning, the curtain is going up, right? Did you pick up on that? And, and so Hitchcock is raising the curtain on this story that he's going to share with us. So we are supposed to recognize ourselves as watchers as well. So isn't that kind of exactly, Lily, at the end it closes? Yep. Did anybody else notice that? So he raises that curtain, invites us in to watch along with Jeff, and we're watching all these little stories take place. And then at the end, he closes that. Yeah, the dog does for sure. Um, let's look at the setting. Why just in this little courtyard at this apartment? Why is that all we get? And we talked about, of course, the little TV screens already, but you're right, Abby. We don't really need anything else, do we? And Lily says it's all Jeff gets. Exactly. Everything that we see in this film is almost everything we see is from his perspective, right? Through his camera or his eyes. And so we can only see what he can see. And so, yeah, that's part of it because he's stuck there. Yeah, exactly. What else happens because of this? Did anybody feel at any point like you were kind of trapped there? Did it give you kind of maybe even a little bit of a restricted feeling? Maybe a little stuffy? Yeah. Yeah. So Hitchcock is going for this, he wants us to feel trapped the same way that Jeff is trapped because again, it's layers. It's us watching him watching them. And so he's trying to kind of put us in his shoes as well. And we can't see everything, can we? We can only see what's in front of the window. But when they go into another room, we lose them. And so there's the piecing together. That's where the mystery part kind of comes in, right? As we can't see the whole story We can only see part, right. Yeah, you're right. We don't even see out the door. Yeah.